I'd like to thank everybody for joining the webinar today. This is part 2 of our two-part series about Black Friday 2001. My name is Jason Ferrara. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Searchspring, and I'll be your moderator today. I think about part 2 of this webinar series in terms of, the Oscars, right? We got this sequel out right in time for Oscar season. And we're really excited because we have a number of guests today who will be our primary actors. So we'll get to introduce those guests in just a minute. But before we do that, I just wanted to talk through briefly the agenda and the topics we will cover. So first, we're going to spend a little bit of time reflecting on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Second, we're going to get some feedback from all of you that are on the webinar in terms of a couple of poll questions we have. And then we're also going to talk about some tips and some suggestions for the future, right? We've all been through a relatively intense period, a couple of days around Black Friday and Cyber Monday. And so we'll talk a little bit about what it means, what to do next. How do we take the momentum that we have and move it through 2022? How do we take the things that we've learned and execute those in a different and possibly better way in 2022? So that's really what we'll talk about today. To help us do that, as I mentioned, our actors here, we have 3 panelists. The first panelist is John Thrailkill. We also have Sarah Toth, and we have Sean Lynn. I will let each of them introduce themselves in just a moment because it's much more compelling when they do it than when I do it. But we're really looking forward to having them on. So why don't we start by doing those introductions? How about John, why don't you pop your camera on and quickly introduce yourself, and then we'll move on to Sarah and Sean.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining. As Jason said, I'm John Thrailkill, and as you can see, I until recently was the EVP of Technology for the Container Store. I was also Vice President of Stores there and worked in marketing for about 9 years. So after a 30-year career, I'm now on to new adventures. So I appreciate the chance to join this group today.
Thanks, John. Sarah, how about you? Pop that camera on and quick introduction would be great.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Toth, and I'm the VP of Marketing and Partnerships at Guidance. Guidance is an e-commerce agency. We work across 4 major platforms, Adobe Commerce, we do BigCommerce as well, Shopify Plus, and Optimizely/Episerver. I've been in the e-commerce field now for over 15 years. Love everything about it, especially on the digital marketing side is really my forte. And I'm really excited to join you today. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And Sean, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Sean Lynn. I am with Bazaarvoice. We are the leaders in UGC to help generate user comments on products on e-commerce websites. I look after our North America partnerships here at Bazaarvoice, and I'm excited to discuss the topics today with the rest of the panelists.
Great. Thanks so much for those introductions. I really appreciate that. But to get into the conversation today, I thought we'd start off with a quick audience poll. So you'll see the slides changing. That's our executive producer, Charles Summers, behind the scenes, making sure that we're on track here. So thank you, Charles, for pulling up that first poll question. So the thing we're going to do is ask you to answer this question. What was your biggest challenge during Black Friday, Cyber Monday? You can begin to answer those, and we will then have a little point of view on each of those questions. Give it just a few more minutes here. Charles, just 1 second so I can Make sure we've got details down. All right, why don't we close out that poll and look at the results. All right. So, biggest challenge during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Out of stock items, 33% topper there. Shipping and delivery also topped the list. And then this is it. It's interesting, the symmetry here. So you got out of stock and shipping and delivery, and then tech performance and follow up. What I love is all things that we talked about in part one and all things that we can talk about here in part two. Charles, go ahead and show the results from this poll that we saw in part one. What I thought was most interesting about that is out of stock items was the number one issue that people were concerned about a couple of weeks ago. Shipping and delivery did not top the list. However, after Black Friday, Cyber Monday, shipping and delivery tops the list, which is interesting because we had that brief conversation, and I think we should revisit that. Product findability, let's see, product findability was not a concern here afterward, and tech performance, I think, is also interesting. That's something I think we're constantly worried about in terms of the results of the poll. So let's turn this over to the panelists. What is it that you see that you find interesting in the poll results? Sean, if you want to start us off, if you got any opinions about that?
Yeah, I think the out of stock sell through definitely it's real. I think last time we spoke, supply chain, we've been hearing about supply chain issues for a while now, and I think the market has done a good job at warning consumers about, hey, supply chain is going to be real, that you better start early, otherwise you're not going to get your product in time for the holidays. And I think that message has really resonated with shoppers, because what the data that we see at Bazaarvoice is that from November 1st till Cyber Monday, that amount of spend has increased year over year compared to years before. While Black Friday and Cyber Monday, those numbers did not increase necessarily as much compared to year over year. But what that tells me is shoppers were prepared and were willing to start early with the right warning from retailers, from brands, just warning about the supply chain. So I'm glad the messaging worked. I'm glad consumers heeded that advice. So while it's still a problem or it's still an issue, I'm glad that the market has adapted.
Yeah, thank you. Sarah, opinions are on what we see here in the results?
Yeah, definitely. On the shipping and delivery, I've seen a lot of messaging from many, brands around delays in shipment. I think that's going to be, even more important, as we lead up to obviously Christmas and the major holidays. I think that continued kind of customer experience and the positive reinforcement that yes, there are shipping delays, but we'll get you your product in time, I think is a really important message. I think this is something that we're talking about now. How can we nurture those Black Friday, Cyber Monday customers into the new year? And I think that really is an important one, is to, yes, I think a lot of customers are really understanding if you communicate with them. You need to have that open communication and say, look, this is beyond our control, and we're trying our best, but just communicate that.
Great, thanks. And Sarah, this concept of communication, we'll come back to it, but played a massive role in part one of this webinar too. In fact, for me, it was the number one takeaway, I think, in the first part. John, how about you, looking at these results here?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I agree with everything that both Sean and Sarah were saying, and especially about Sarah's points on communication, because that's from the standpoint of the customer experience and the relationship, continuing on, how you handle those problems is really the crux of whether or not that person's going to trust you again in the future. And some of that also comes now down to how you execute. So seeing that the number for shipping and delivery went through the roof like it did and kind of tripled in terms of the concern, I would bet that many of the people on this call are probably going to be packing some of those packages themselves if they're anything like what we did at the Container Store when we had those crunch times, and it was kind of all hands on deck for, as we called it, a packing party. Because there's a certain point when you really have to do everything you possibly could with every set of hands you can get to get those orders out the door. Now then, when it's in the hands of FedEx and UPS and those folks, if you've done your communication properly and you've told the customer, here's your tracking number, they will let that retailer off the hook, so to speak, at that point, because they know that that's all you can do for the most part is get it into that channel. And then they'll just be mad at FedEx if it takes too long. But not that you want them mad, but it's certainly better for them to be mad at FedEx than to be mad at you and your brand, right?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
One thing, Jason, I also wanted to point out on the product findability, I find interesting is that 26 before Black Friday, 26% were worried about that before Black Friday Cyber Monday, and now it's 0%. I think that what I saw a lot of is obviously there's a lot of out of stock. There's a lot of, all these supply chain issues. And I think brands that are doing it really well is where on the findability side, if a product can't be found by a customer for whatever reason, if it's out of stock or, there's supply chain issues, is actually offering an alternative. So I think that that's an interesting kind of way, and I've seen that a lot with some major big box retailers as well, offering alternatives and recommendations around major brand, whatever, electronics, whatever it is, offering alternatives that are in stock.
Sarah, you teed up my thought perfectly on that, because I've been doing Christmas shopping for my wife, and I went to the mall, went to Williams-Sonoma, found she's a huge Harry Potter fan. They have this great Le Creuset pan, but it's not going to be available until February. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? But the store was, they offered a great solution. They said they could wrap it up, take pictures or provide pictures, provide a gift box. And so at least there's something to be received, around Christmas. The product will arrive later, but at least there's something tangible that can be passed over. So I thought that was really
a lot of that. The pictures for gifts.
Yeah, better than nothing. I thought that was clever.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, and it's, the creativity around what do we do, so that, Sean, you go on and tell this story, right? The story you could have told was they advertised this thing, I went to get it, they didn't have it, and they're not going to have it, and I was disgruntled and left.
Exactly.
And that's not the story you told, right? You told this incredibly fun, positive story, which is, if you're going to brand something like Harry Potter, let's make it feel magical, right? And so it will. And that's a really great point. I want to mention something and get your feedback on it from the panel. So during the first part of this webinar, I had mentioned that shipping and delivery was low, and I asked for thoughts from the panel. And the overall thought from John, you and Sean and Mike, who was on the first part, was that the audience wasn't an audience focused on shipping and delivery, and that it was much more of an audience focused on how do we find things and make sure we service the customer. And now we get to part two, and all of a sudden, shipping and delivery is like, tied for number one. My guess is we're pulling in the same audience. So what's going on here? Why was it 3 weeks ago this wasn't a big deal? Today it's like tied for number one. What's going on here?
Well, the CFO reminded everyone that you don't get credit for any of those sales until they leave the distribution center. So everyone that looked at their sales and thought they were pretty good realized that they have to help get it out the door.
Yeah.
I think we have also a little bit of recency bias in terms of this is the way humans work, right? We're first worried about, getting the product to the customer, and then we worry about the holiday follow-up. But I, of course, on the marketing side, I think that nurturing the customer throughout that entire journey is so important. But as humans, we are sometimes limited by our recency bias, right? That's what we we work in that kind of very chronological way, right? I think holiday follow-up, as like I said, as a marketer, I think that's the most important part. I think it should be, and not necessarily calling it follow-up, but you know, the entire journey, right, from the beginning to that end stage, right?
Yep.
I agree with all that. And to John's point, not, the CFO, it doesn't get realized until it actually gets shipped. And from a UGC perspective, unless the consumers actually receive the product, they're not going to be able to write a review, or an honest review at least. They might leave a negative review just because they have a bad taste in their mouth.
Yeah.
But it's so important. Like, you got to have the full funnel in terms of customer journey to the finish line of getting the product. So shipping is top of mind. Got to get the product to them.
Yeah. No, I appreciate all those comments, and I think you're right. And I have a piece of paper here. I keep writing some big takeaways. I think we have a couple already, and one of those is just the notion of this full funnel, right? And yeah, today I'm worried about shipping. 2 weeks ago, I was worried about people finding stuff and out of stock. And I think the real lesson there is this full funnel is incredibly important. And we got to think through that. Great, thanks for your comments and thoughts there, Charles. I know you're itching to get the next poll set up here, so let's go to the next poll question. We have two areas of engagement here with the audience, which is exciting. So, which of the following have you tried in the past to turn seasonal buyers into long-term customers? Let's nurture emails, retargeting ads, tailored offers, upselling, and other. If you've got other, type that into the chat. See what that other might look like. Getting some results in. Give it just a few more minutes. Okay, and I think, let's see, let's just give it a couple more seconds to see a few more going here. All right, Charles, I think we can go ahead and close that out, show the results. Here we go. Which of the following have you tried in the past? Retargeting ads, number one. Nurture emails, tailored offers, upselling accessories, and other. So I appreciate other. If you're so inclined, type a couple things in the chat box that might mean other. We can have some good conversation around that. But let's talk to the panelists here. What is it that you're seeing in these results? Retargeting ads, nurturing emails, those obviously topping the list. Interesting to you? Unique? What do you see in those results?
My initial takeaways, those two particular categories, is engagement with your consumer, with your customer. Staying top of mind with your customers, super important. Even if they didn't purchase at that time because maybe it was out of stock or for whatever other reason, the engagement is super important through the nurture emails and retargeting emails, or display ads or video ads, whatever the retargeting is. And I think also on the nurture email, that makes me think of post-interaction emails. If the consumer does purchase, engaging with them a week, 2 weeks later after they've had time to use the product is also vital. It's a great way to collect information from the consumer, whether they had a good experience, bad experience. You can learn a lot from your consumers. And the takeaway again, just engagement with the consumer. Learn.
Yep. Great. Sarah, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely agree with what Sean said, and I think that actually combining all of this is where you get to that kind of nirvana from an e-commerce perspective, where you have, for example, retargeting ads that are actually upselling accessories for a product that was already purchased. Imagine that, right? Or you're getting a nurture email around, again, like upselling some accessories around a product that a customer has already said with their UGC, hey, I love this product, right? Something like that, right? Or using all your search results for a certain customer that you know about and say, hey, let's start to personalize and the recommendations around the searches that they've already done, right? I think that where you have like an e-commerce stack where it's like kind of taking it from like an entire holistic perspective and really honing in on truly what a customer is looking for is where you really reach the epitome of what we're trying to do from a marketing perspective. That's where I see again, it's to Sean's point, is like that true engagement, right? And where you can really see customers want to spend money with you. Like they're like, here, take my money, but I want you to show me the things that I want to give you money for, right? There's nothing worse to me from the consumer side and as a customer than being presented with a negative customer experience, right? Where I'm like, here's my money. I'm not going to give it to you because you're giving me a negative experience. Even a neutral one, you can that's better than a negative one, right?
Right.
So I think it is all about that, as Sean said, that customer engagement and continuing it.
John, how about you?
Yeah, I'm surprised the tailored offers was as small as it was. Again, to me, that's a big opportunity, as Sarah's talking about, to have more of that life cycle in mind for that customer, and knowing that if you have so many new customers that have, for the first time, sampled your product, in my mind, there should be a clear next step, depending on what they purchased, to look for what the next logical thing is from them that is, again, tailored, as Sarah was saying. It can't just be a blanket, here's another 10% off to buy whatever you want. It can be, but again, that's not what we're talking about in terms of tailored here. I also I think the real opportunity here also lies around finding out why people didn't check out if they abandoned their cart, and then using that in the proper messaging. Those are the things I think that really set retailers apart, is when you can figure out where the friction is, and with so many people coming through as they did over the last couple of weeks, to be able to find a way to understand from those customers why was it that they didn't check out with what they put in their cart. That's the part that'll make you crazy at night if you don't try to find those answers, because then again, it could be competitive, it could be a site problem, it could be any number of things that you either can or can't impact, or should or should not impact. But getting that to that level of understanding with your customer, to me, is a critical opportunity that people should be looking to do now while it's fresh and while they've got so many people that abandon carts.
Yeah, I appreciate all those comments. I want to go back to the previous poll, because I realized, Sarah, we talked about recency bias, and that makes a whole lot of sense. But all of these comments go back to this idea of technology performance and tech stack, right? To personalize, to understand the engagement, to understand why people are abandoning carts. That's a tech exercise. I'm sure all of you have stories on that, really positive stories or horror stories. But anybody want to share a couple thoughts on tech stack? And I think now we'll start transitioning maybe away from this specific poll number for what happens now in the future. I think tech stack's a decent conversation to start with. Anybody have a thought around tech stack?
Yeah, quick thought here is, from a UGC perspective, so much data can be extracted from user comments in terms of, whether they like the products, whether they dislike the products, whether the product was failing, whether the products, just how much they loved it. There's so much data in the comments, and that is being extracted out into the Bazaarvoice platform as insights. So brands, retailers can better understand their customers through honest feedback from customers, and therefore go back to the top of the funnel or go back somewhere in the funnel and deliver that message, deliver another product you can do so much with that insight. So I think from a tech stack perspective, having the right setup to engage with your customers is vital for success.
Mhm.
Definitely. I mean, that's what we do at Guidance, right? Is we integrate and help our clients ensure that the tech stack that they've selected is the best one for their use case. And having a kind of tech stack that we like to say speaks to each other, right? And ensuring that everything is interconnected is critical, right? And being able to have, and I think this is something that I know it was kind of a cliche thing, but I still think it's relevant, is dashboarding everything and ensuring that you have these types of dashboards, because it can be overwhelming, right? The amount of data from each one of these parts of a tech stack, right, can be quite overwhelming to a lot of brands and businesses. And being able to dashboard it in a meaningful and kind of intelligible, I guess you could call it, way is so critical for the business, so that data becomes usable, right? And can be in the future, data that changes the direction of a business.
Great.
Yeah,
John?
Sarah, I couldn't agree with more what you're saying about that holistic view of everything in there. And to me, an example I would give is if your solution has a 4 or 5 page checkout process right now, you could look at the metrics on that. You could have great page load times on each of those 4 or 5 pages. And you could point and say, well, look, these page load, it loads really fast. So customers say that's important. If it's a 4 or 5 page checkout process, you're losing people at every click along that process. And if you aren't measuring that and understanding that and looking for ways to streamline it, then you're going to continue to have that falling out of your funnel because you're not looking at the right things. And that, I think, is what I would encourage people to do now, is to try to find those opportunities to improve the technology that really is something that's going to change the way the customer views that process and that they recognize it as being better. It's the type of thing that is really easy to just leave and let it, when it's working, to leave it alone and to say, well, let's not mess with that. Because if it's not broken, why would I possibly want to go in and redo my checkout process? But the reality is that you can't afford to just leave it alone. When customer expectations continue to change and go up and up and up year over year, you have to be constantly evaluating it and improving it every single year.
Yeah, and I think also the customer feedback cycle is so important, like from a UGC perspective, right? If a customer is complaining about something, listen to them. Don't just throw that comment away, right? It could be a valuable form of feedback that needs listening or improvement or whatever it is, right? I won't name a brand, but I had that type of issue where a refund was taking over 3 weeks. I feel like that in this day and age, a 3-week refund on a credit card seems a little excessive. And when I went through the chatbot, I went through various kind of channels to try to resolve my issue, and that company has lost my business because it's just been an ongoing thing where I just haven't gotten my refund, right? I shouldn't have to. We shouldn't have to worry about that as a customer, right?
The frustration level builds, and the sourness of that experience just gets tainted. It just resonates with the. But I think on the insights portion, Sarah, yes, I think the insights dashboard that Bazaarvoice platform has, it helps inform product developers at the brand, at the retailers. So it's a vital and important piece of the puzzle, in my opinion. I think also to your point about dashboarding, if you have the data, you gotta have actionable insights from that data. Data is only data, but you gotta turn it into something useful. And I think, John, to your point also about making it easy for consumers along that journey. We talked about it, recently about Apple Pay and other payment solutions where you just want it's so easy just to click that button to finish that process, as opposed to getting out, finding your wallet, getting the credit card, entering all those numbers. You got to make it easy. And I think the payment solutions is a great development in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to back up quickly. We've got some questions that are coming in, which is great. So if you're watching and listening, feel free to actively participate by asking some questions in the questions tab on the side. I want to back up because the question is, what does she mean by dashboard? And I think it's a really good question because as we talk about technology, the four of us are heavily involved in the technology side of the business. But if I'm an e-commerce merchant, maybe I'm not. And so having a dashboard isn't something that is second nature to me or I really understand. So Sarah, can you elaborate just quickly, like, what do you mean by that?
So a dashboard, it comes from the kind of a car dashboard, right? You have all your critical information on your car dashboard, right? You've got your gas, you've got your how fast are you going? Is your engine overheating? Do you have any of your check engine lights? All those things, the critical things that keep a car running are on your dashboard. So the idea with a dashboard, and it could be any kind of dashboard, right? Like, I mean, every kind of part of your tech stack can have a dashboard. For example, Sean was referencing one for Bazaarvoice, and there's so many different kinds of dashboards. You can actually even have, and there's solutions where you have a master dashboard, right, where you're integrating all your different disparate solutions into one master dashboard. And the idea is you're bringing in data from all of your critical components of your e-commerce stack to ensure that things are running smoothly, just like your car. It's the same kind of concept where you're basically bringing in all that critical and mission critical, business critical information to ensure that your business is running kind of at the most optimal level possible. And it's a great way to identify, just like the check engine light, hey, there's something wrong here. We need to fix something, right? And it's a great, like John was saying, like actionable, it's all actionable data, right? You want to make sure you're dashboarding information that is actionable to your business, right? Like a car, I'm not sure what, but I don't know, something is broken on your car that's not as important, it wouldn't be on your dashboard, for example, right? Because it's not critical to the usage of your car. Like you have a dent on your car, it doesn't impact the drivability of it, right? So you want to make sure that you're putting your most critical information on that dashboard. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great explanation, and obviously, I think most of us would have an experience with driving a car or something similar. John, you got a thought there? Your face seems like it says I've got a thought.
Everything Sarah's saying is so dead on right, and the only thing I would add to that, to just try to hit the point home even harder, is if you don't have the right metrics on that dashboard, then you're not going to get the results you want. If you don't have navigation in your car and you don't know where you're going, then how are you going to possibly get to the destination you're looking for? If you're trying to save gasoline, but you're not tracking your mileage and you're burning gas at a higher rate, then you're not meeting your expectations. So the great thing about a dashboard is it can give you anything you want. That's also the hardest thing about it, is you have to know what you want, and you have to choose those things carefully and make sure that there's alignment all the way up to the strategic level for the business with those metrics, so that what you're reporting out is what the executives of that business are actually wanting you to focus on.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Sean.
It's a very iterative process where, and it's like everything else. I think it's an evolution. It's a dynamic, fluid process, right? Where you can put data onto your dashboard that potentially you're testing out, right? And it's a testing process. I'm sure the first automobile that was out did not have a dashboard that resembles anything that we have now, right? So it is very much an iterative process that does evolve with time and your business, just like John was saying.
I think it's a great way for a business owner, for an enterprise company, to take an honest look at themselves in the mirror and say, what is important? And as Sarah's mentioning, it's not, the dashboard is a living organism. It doesn't have to stay stagnant. It evolves with your business, but it's a great opportunity to take a look and just take a look at yourself in the mirror and find out what's important, what's not as important. And then I can't help but think, but you know, what we were talking about earlier about sales and then actual delivery, I think that would be an interesting dashboard to have to see actual fulfillment versus sales. Because even though, you know, the brand or the retailer is off the hook, the consumer is still, you know, important at the end of the day, and it's important for them to get their product.
Yeah, very well, very good.
I would also just throw in, if you are listening to this and saying, well, gosh, I'm not sure that I really know all those things that I would put on there. I know what I would look at, but I'm not sure exactly what the CEO would want. You have every right to demand those things from the leadership of your company. And I say demand, I'm saying that in a way that's encouraging you to be assertive and in the right tone. Go ask for those things, because really that is the responsibility of executive management, is to provide that strategy and that understanding to the team, so that they know what they should be focusing on. And if you're not sure, then go ask before you find out that you're actually going down the wrong road.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just saying, it's that critical answer of, it's okay to admit I don't know, but that's that critical point where you need to start to find out how you can, how you can know.
Yeah, very good. Another question that had come in, again, sort of more on the tactical side. So let's answer this, and we'll jump back up one level and talk a little bit about lessons learned and tips for the coming year. But in terms of understanding shopping cart abandonment, this is something I think people say and read about a lot. How do I, as an e-commerce merchant, understand shopping cart abandonment? I mean, if someone leaves the cart, how do I know why they left the cart? How do I follow up with them? They're not going to get on the phone with me. Maybe they do. I don't, like, how do we begin to understand shopping cart abandonment?
Not an easy one to answer, in my opinion. I mean, I'm sure there's solutions out there, but you know, personally, from my experiences, if I have left a shopping cart, I oftentimes get follow-up emails saying, hey, you know, your shopping cart is, you know, there. Don't let that product slip away. So I think that's one tactic, is reaching out via email, via retargeting, or some other method. But you have to have that user's, I guess, login information. So I think it's understanding your customer. I think it goes back to that point, and understanding your customer in a logged in perspective is critical for that loop to happen.
Okay.
I think of some ways that you can kind of continue that engagement even with a customer that is potentially turned. For example, why not, and if you have the information like their email address or you can text them or whatever, however way you want to communicate with them, maybe you can ask them, why did you abandon your cart, and provide them with 10-15% discount in exchange for that information, which is so valuable and critical, and is actually quite a gap, right? In a lot of kind of retailers, they have no idea why a certain person abandoned their cart, right? So maybe offer them a discount, which could potentially lead to a sale, but you're also getting this information that is so critical to your business.
Mm-hmm.
I love that thought. I do think it's exactly got to be the way that Sean and Sarah are talking about it. It's got to be an individualized message to that customer, the ones you know, the ones you've got an email for, or a number to be able to text them on. And I think a one question survey is all you're looking for. It's just really, hey, even if there's not an offer with it, it could just be, hey, you forgot your things, don't forget them. Or please tell us why you hate us. Why don't you want my children to go to a good college? You know, this is a fair question to ask somebody, right?
That's right. That's right. It's your livelihood.
I will say customers love to give their opinion. So ask for it. I think that's a really big part of what we're not doing, is asking for that. What people love to talk. Ask them and give them that opportunity and that the stage to talk and converse with your brand.
Build the relationship as opposed to just driving the transaction.
Yeah, and I think that's a great spot to jump off to our next topic here. So one of the things we promised in this session were some tips on how to turn new customers into long-term customers. Sean, it strikes me that what you just said is probably right at the, the core of this conversation about building the relationship. So let's talk about that. How about some, if we can talk about maybe very specific tips for, okay, I got a customer during this holiday shopping period. I want to keep them now. What's my next step there? What should I be doing?
I think find out what's been successful for you. My mind keeps thinking about my wife in terms of her evolution of shopping this past year and a half. And for her, and I believe for many others, even myself, it's about convenience in terms of shopping. I think curbside pickup has been amazing. I think there have been some studies showing that curbside continues to be a popular option for many shoppers. So I think convenience and continuing what you've found successful this past year and a half of COVID is critical. But I think the bottom line, convenience for the shopper, make it easy. So curbside is one thing that stands out to me.
Okay, very good. John?
Yeah, everything around convenience is what comes to my mind as well. I mean, the other day I ordered a filter for our air conditioning system that was the same price delivered to my house, in 2 days as it was to go get it. So even then, and I had time, but I'm like, well, if I don't have to make that trip, I won't make it. But when I do make that trip, having store pickup is a key differentiator for me to be able to shop that retailer versus going someplace where I have to go in and find it. I think the challenge for every retailer is finding that profitable way to do those transactions and to walk that line between saying, well, I captured the sale, but I had to end up spending, I gave up 10 or 15 or 20 points of margin because I needed to ship it or because I needed to have it delivered. This is what's going to be the challenge for the next several years is finding a way to compete on convenience without it being something that just absolutely crushes your profitability as a business. I think the other piece to that I would come back around and say is going to be critical is something that it's more the look forward type thought. But one of the things that we know is a challenge for every retailer is returns, and it's a huge cost. And it's the type of thing that I think there's got to be energy put into finding ways up front in your buying process to give customers better tools so that they make better choices around what they're going to buy. I know I'll buy 3 sizes of something if I've never bought it before and then just return 2 of them. That's not good business. The better solution would be to find a way for there to be a tool that I select the one size and it actually does fit, for one example. So just to me, that's where I would want to find out what that piece is in my business that causes people to buy multiples of something and return them and try to find a way to avoid the returns.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, how about you?
Yeah, just to kind of expand on John and Sean's point, I agree. I think convenience is going to be huge, and it continues to be a huge factor, especially with, kind of this, I don't even know if we can call it post-pandemic world that we're in now. What John was referring to, bracketing is a very, it's becoming an increasing, it's problematic in that, people are buying multiple sizes, colors, styles, that kind of thing, right? And so that obviously is, and something else to kind of talk about is how has that kind of inflated the actual numbers, right, of what the true sales are for the last kind of few years as this phenomenon of consumers buying multiple sizes. It looks like you're doing really well, but actually all of that ends up in the return, right? And I think just as John and Sean said, having that convenience of returns, given that this is a phenomenon that doesn't seem to be going anywhere, is how can we as kind of the, retailer, speaking from the retailer perspective, how can we, knowing that this is a phenomenon that's not going anywhere, how can we aid the consumer, right? And I think that's, to John's point, is having sizing that's accurate for every product, because when you have multiple sizes and for example, putting a true size model on there and having true size measurements, those kind of things will help the bracketing kind of issue, right? And then knowing that that's an ongoing issue is having really convenient returns. How do you kind of help the consumer to kind of make them feel at ease purchasing potentially less and returning less of that product, right? So yeah, I completely agree with John and Sean's points.
Great. So yeah, convenience, I think, convenience we can unpack, and it means a lot of things. You outlined returns, you outlined pickup, true size models, those getting a good idea of what's happening with the product, I think is excellent point. One of the things I want to ask is, this is partially what did the three of you learn from Black Friday, but partially what should we be doubling down on? What is the strategy that we should be saying from now to the next period of time when I, have explosive sales or the opportunity for that? What should I be doubling down on? What's the thing I cannot live without in my business? What's your thought around that?
I think constant engagement with the customers that you've earned over this past year, and especially through this holiday season, don't give up on them, because it's not easy to acquire new customers. It's not easy to acquire new audiences. Find ways to stay engaged, whether it be through extending sales, any type of offers, retargeting opportunities. Don't give up on your audiences that you've earned, that you've worked so hard this past season or year.
Great.
Because I'm a marketer, I'm a difficult shopper. So I actually don't really buy anything on Black Friday. I give the brands that I give my money to the opportunity to continue to engage with me and show me the kind of different types of sales they can show me throughout the entire kind of year, and how can they engage with me, not on this like super popular day, right? I think a brand that stands out is one that can really, and that's where I put my money, is where I find that a brand is continually engaging with me, and not just on this one particular day where everyone else is doing it, so why won't we? I like a brand that goes out of that kind of the fold that everyone else is in, right? So to your point, I think that continued engagement and offer me surprises, offer me something where I wake up on my, I'm on my phone scrolling through my in bed, and I see an email. Offer me a surprise. Make me click that email and open it, not just on Black Friday. Let me do it in June. Let me do it in February, whatever it is. But to show me mystery, keep me engaged, keep me surprised, keep me on my toes with your brand.
Well, and I think that goes to one of the things that I saw in the data, which is we're not talking Black Friday or Cyber Monday really anymore. We're talking a period of time that is longer than a 24-hour period of time. So let's get into that in just a second. But John, what should we be doubling down on?
Well, first of all, I love the fact that Sarah, basically what she's saying is she says no to all these folks, but she words it as giving them the opportunity to continue to, give her a good reason to buy. She's very generous about that. I love that. I think that is the mindset of so many customers, is that until they see enough of what they really, really want to see, they're not going to pull the trigger. And one of the things we talked about on our first call was, my feelings about the ability of the American consumer to procrastinate beyond anything I ever could possibly imagine. It continues to just get more and more that way. Some of the numbers that we saw over the last week or so showed that there was a lot of shopping done in November, even pre-Black Friday, and so some of the warnings got out about the supply chain. But I will still double down and say that there are a lot of people like Sarah out there who have not made their decisions yet, and there's still a lot of time, as Sean and Sarah both saying, to make those impressions and to give that customer what they want. And then the other thing I would add to it is, this is going to sound very crazy in this time, but if you need to be a little more aggressive with your promises around shipping and delivery, I would be a little more aggressive. The FedEx and UPS dates that they put out there are done in a way that they can hopefully be 100% successful with, because they don't want the blame for that. The reality is that a lot of things shipped after those dates will still make it before the holiday that they're trying to have something get there. So if you're in a position where you feel that you need to be a little more aggressive, I would be more aggressive with allowing those dates a little bit later, getting them shipped. And then again, if you communicate like crazy, you can make up for someone's disappointment, especially if it's only a very small percentage of the people. If you take an extra 1,000 orders because you added one more day of shipping window, and if only 1 or 2% of those don't get there, those are people that you can connect with and apologize. But you get another 98% of people that wouldn't have made a purchase from you if they hadn't had that extra day to do it.
Yeah, great point. Thank you.
Risky, I know, but
You're a gambling man.
I think it goes back to our conversation about creativeness, right? Or creativeness. I'm not sure that's a word. Creativity, which is okay. Yeah, one more day can do something for us. So push it for the one more day. How creative can we be in that? I do want to jump back to this notion that Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the days in between. Looking at Searchspring data, pretty evenly trafficked those days, even starting with Thanksgiving Day in the US through Cyber Monday. And we just mentioned a couple of times on this panel, purchases in November were a high watermark for the shopping time period. What's happening? Does Black Friday matter? Does Cyber Monday matter? What's happening? help us unpack that.
Well, I've seen a lot of customers with a vexing experience of, seeing the same discount on, Black Friday as they have throughout all of November and into December. What's the motivation, right? To purchase on a specific day where you feel kind of cramped in your decision, right? I find that to be a vexing experience. There's no additional motivation. If you're going to offer 40% off in the beginning of November through to like mid-December, what are you doing different, right? That to me, and I've seen that over and over again with a lot of brands that are not really offering kind of anything additional. So, yeah.
Right, I agree with that, Sarah. The offers don't quite seem the same as they were in previous years. The motivation from retailers seemed to be a little bit different in that the previous offers in previous years were to get people in store. But I think over the last year especially, the motivation has been to drive more conversions online, which requires maybe a different approach with the offer as opposed to in-store. So I agree there. I think Cyber Monday and Black Friday are still important in terms of anchor events or timeframes for people to understand, but I think it's an evolution. It's not getting people in store as much as driving sales throughout the month.
Yeah, I actually think there's something to be learned of the kind of retail brick and mortar experience of the like lost leader. I feel like that's something is a great motivator to, yes, this is a lost leader. It's something you're not going to, it's not profitable, but potentially that's a way to, drive additional conversions, right? And saying like, if you add this to cart, you need to add something else, right? So, I mean, there is ways to drive additional conversion online as well in using some of those brick and mortar strategies.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think there's power in doing things, as you were saying, that are truly unique. And there were some offers I saw, at least one or two, where the retailer was saying, we never put this on sale, and it's on sale right now. Could be an item, it could be a category, whatever it is. But saying that, I would also say on the flip side of that, if you're going to do something like that, and you say it's only good for 48 hours, I also saw those same retailers then send me multiple extension messages for a few days after that. And that to me takes away from the fact, whether I did it or not, I still see that message and say, well, you said it was only 2 days. So now I know the next time you send me a message that says it's 2 days, it's probably not 2 days, it's probably a week. So I would say to think about those things, because they will stick in the mind of your consumer as well.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, thank you very much for the time you've spent today with us. I think as a follow-up here, I plan to sort of put some of these takeaways together in a blog post. We'll make sure everybody's got access to that. Things like communication and creativity, things like nurturing and engagement. I mean, those concepts came back around and around and around. You know, even something tactically like with your tech stack, a dashboard should be part of that. With your tech stack, what do you do about shipping? The full funnel exercise. You know, those are all very important concepts and unique to someone's business, but conceptually not necessarily unique. How am I treating someone through the full funnel? Really, really important stuff. And I think great question to end on in terms of what does all this mean? What are we experiencing? Like Black Friday, Cyber Monday, great anchor points because it's nice to have an anchor point. Now, because we have an anchor point, we can think about how do we treat people like Sarah who buy at the off times because they're looking for that type of interaction that most of the time you get on those 2 days. So how are we looking to doing something unique and special on those 2 days, which then will anchor someone to say, oh, I need to pay attention to that. Or that is important to me, that isn't important to me, I'm still gonna buy from a particular merchant. Lots of really amazing ideas here. I just wanna thank you, John, and Sean and Sarah for being a part of the panel today. And we're looking forward to the selling year that is 2022. And we're already looking forward to, if you can handle it, Black Friday and Cyber Monday of 2022.
Crazy.
Thanks very much, team. I really, really appreciate it. Thanks everybody for joining, and thank you for the questions. Really exciting to see those come in. Have a great day, and I truly appreciate the time you spent with us today. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.